First, I would like to thank our distinguished Chairwoman Velasquez for her work on this very important bill and the bipartisan way in which she has carried this committee out. Truly grateful for her efforts, as well as our ranking member Graves for his leadership on our side of the aisle to incorporate members' ideas into this bill. This legislation here today is intended to increase credit options for small business owners in America. I rise today to offer a simple amendment to this important legislation which will help small businesses across the country have greater access to necessary capital. Such support is needed not only to sustain their operations, but also for these small businesses to be able to expand their production capabilities and profits and ultimately lead to more jobs and opportunities for our citizens. Now, it is no secret that small businesses are the engine that drive the American economy, currently creating 7 out of the 10 new jobs here in America, and increasing lending options and capital for small businesses is vital to leading our country out of this current economic downturn. I'm glad today that this body is taking the necessary steps to help our small businesses grow. Finally, recognizing the significant role that small businesses will play in any economic recovery. It is no secret that one of the greatest disappointments my colleagues on this side of the aisle had in the so-called stimulus legislation was that it did not do enough for small businesses. But yet here today, we are trying to rectify that. That said, I am offering this simple amendment, which is backed by both the American Banking Association as well as those small independent community bankers, which I believe will help incentivize increased SBA-backed lending to small businesses from more and more banks across this country. The legislation before us sets up important guidelines through the National Lender Training Program for banks to follow if they would like to be considered preferred lenders, thus obtaining easier access to carry SBA guaranteed loans. While the significance of establishing such a unified training program for lenders to follow cannot be understated, it is equally important that we reward those who complete such training with a true guarantee from the SBA on the loans that they offer to businesses. As is, the SBA currently fails to pay on claims of somewhere between 5 and 10% of the loans they guarantee, therefore causing fear in the mind of lenders who would otherwise offer a loan. This amendment will ensure that the SBA will pay out on a guarantee to any lender who can demonstrate that they followed the prescribed training under the National Lender Training Program. If the SBA refuses to pay on such a claim, they must present clear and convincing evidence as to how the lender failed to meet any requirements of the training program. With this type of assurance of lender compensation for SBA guaranteed loans, in default, banks across this country will be more likely to lend to small businesses, ultimately helping to loosen credit markets, get capital flowing again, and put people back to work. While I appreciate this legislation's efforts to extend loan guarantees from the SBA, it is equally important that we ensure the SBA pays out on those guarantees, which such loans go into a fault. Removing the ambiguity of the SBA to decide which lenders get paid on guarantees and which do not will result in more banks being willing to participate in these programs and ultimately more loans being made to our nation's small businesses. I urge adoption of this amendment. Mr. Chairman, I reserve the balance of my time.
The chair will clarify that the amendment has 10 minutes of debate, equally divided, so the gentleman from Illinois now has 1.5 minutes remaining. Gentlewoman from New York.
Mr. Chairman, while not opposed to the amendment, I ask unanimous consent to claim the time in opposition.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, one of the greatest challenges small firms are facing is banks' reluctance to lend.